Well, I'm just simply serving a little bit like an MC or maybe it's the circus master here. I'm not sure which that might be. But we have invited, and Joe was working through this with the Lutheran men, to be able to, as part of our kickoff to the 150th anniversary, to be looking back a little bit on some issues of memories of St. Luke's. So what they've done is invited folks that have a wide range of different history here, different ages, different families, different memories. And we've invited them, as you have seen, to be able to consider some of these different questions. Now, we've only got roughly a little bit over an hour. So we know that we're going to have to be a little bit careful how long our stories are so we get a chance to share. And maybe if we don't get through all the stories we want, maybe there's some other folks that we also want to add. I've already at least chatted with Joe. I don't know if we've chatted with the other men in mission. Maybe a couple months from now we do the same thing and do it again. And we get a few more stories, a little bit more time. But we are going to have to move along reasonably quick. So I will try to help that along if we need to, but you didn't come here to listen to me. You'll hear me in another hour and a half. So we don't have a list of who goes first, but somebody else said not me. So we'll open it up to the floor right now. Do we have somebody? Somebody's pointing at Glenn.
Yes.
No, that might be. But the question is what do you, Glenn, would you care? Do you have one of those questions? And we can ask you to use the microphone if you will. Or if it's not Glenn, Glenn says, I don't want to go first, someone else. Which question, how would you start to answer what that answer would be for you?
I didn't understand what you talked about.
So Tim, could you?
Just ask him to go.
Yes, did you ask him to go first?
You want to go first? Whichever one of those questions you want to.
Or you don't have to answer a question, just tell your story.
Oh, he can write, yeah, he can write whatever he's got. Just give him the microphone.
Well, let me go with this first.
Okay. Thank you.
The old church, the men sat on one side and the ladies on the other. I think the men was on this side and the ladies was on the other. And the brick was handmade, and they were made back here sort of between the shelter and the railroad track. And I guess they had to have a kiln to fire them. And I think, Margaret, I went to see, I didn't know too much about this, so I went to see my sister Margaret. And she's be only 106 in February, so I figured that was the only way I could get some information. And the church was lighted by oil lamps down each side, and the window glasses were clear, and we had two entrance doors. One on the right, one on the left. You come in the doors and immediately went to the balcony, and on both sides. And they had a place up there for black people to sit, and also they had an organ up there. I believe it's the same organ that's sitting in the room next to the choir. And it looks like the same. And down in front, on this side, they had it was the choir. The seats of the choir went this way, and the same thing on that corner. They had about 3 or 4 seats, rows of seats. And Margaret said, the old men sat in this corner over here. But that's sort of, after thinking about it, that's probably right, because in order to get to the sanctuary and in the seats, you had to climb steps. You had to climb them either in the front, or you come down the aisle and go over the sides and climb them going back up. So these Postal, these old men didn't have good legs, so they had to sit over there. That didn't dawn on me till later on. And the cemetery wasn't very well kept. Sometimes the weeds would get high, and they'd have a cemetery work day. And people would bring the shovels and hose, pitchforks, and briar sizes, and whatever they had, and clean the cemetery. That happened maybe twice a year. Also, members of the church dug the grave. In the hot, dry summer months, that was a real task. It'd be 90, 95 degrees, and you get down the hole digging, it was hot. The backhoes helped that. Whenever the backhoes was invented, whether on the back of a tractor, they could dig it very easy. And the grove of trees out front was dying. We were losing a lot of, mostly hickory and some oak, but they were dying one right after another. And I think Mr. Jim Lowry said, boys, if you don't plant some new trees, we're going to be without shade. So they planted the willow oaks out there. And right now, I believe there's 3 or 4 of the old original hickories still out there. Let's see. If you want to see how the old church looked, there's a church over in Davie County built almost identical, except it didn't have the elevated seats. And it's not used. That's where the people met before Holy Cross was built. And it's been standing empty, but 2 or 3 people in the neighborhood have tried to keep it up.
A good time to maybe see if we can, somebody else as well. Well, can we come back to you in a few minutes?
Would be fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But sure, Meredith, if you've got something, we welcome that as well.
Okay, I haven't been here quite long enough to have any stories like that. And really I don't have any just stories that stand out. Mostly it's just a lifelong experience. It's just St. Luke's has always just been so welcoming and comfortable, I guess you could say, is a good word. You know, bringing friends here, everybody just fit in, no matter what color, it didn't matter. And I can't think of any like great events or anything. I just had fun going to Luther Ridge, things like that growing up were just so much fun. And even now to this day, if I have a St. Luke's softball shirt, and anywhere I go in the community, whether it's China Grove, Mooresville, anywhere, somebody's like, oh, St. Luke's, we have family that went there. We used to play them in softball, and we tried to beat them, you know. Anyways, it's a huge community that we've created here in this little church. And I don't, 150 years is a long time. And it's just amazing how many people we've touched. And the Christmas in the mountains, I remember doing that when we were little. And going up there and seeing these kids and how excited they were. Just pure joy of us bringing them presents. And it was just, it really, those little things touched me more than any big event, I guess you could say. And, I guess it worked good enough to talk Wesley into coming here, so. And he loves it, and he's happy, and I don't think we would ever go anywhere else. And anyways, it's just a good community, and y'all, everybody has touched a lot of lives, whether it's been family or friends. And like I said, people, almost every time I wear that shirt, I get recognized, because, or they don't even have to know my name. They're like, oh, St. Luke's. And anyways, it's just been a joy to grow up here and to have friends here and family. And anyways, we'll be here for a long time. And hopefully, in, a few more years, I'll have some good stories to tell again.
Thank you. So we've gone from the oldest to the youngest at our tables. We got 6 more folks in between. Somebody else?
Got
No? Tim?
I'm going to speak about Bible school. Is it not?
I think
When I was growing up, the church was our social life. We came to all the programs, especially Bible school. And one year my mother was elected to be a teacher. So we had an old 39 Chevrolet that had 2 doors on it. So my mother piles us in the car, 3 of us and my cousin Peggy. We all piled in that car and got up to Mount Ulla, and there stood 4 Miller boys needing a ride to the church for Bible school. There was 4 boys. 3 of them got in the back seat with my brother and me. And the 4th one had to hang on the running board with his arms through the post. And that's how he got to Bible school. And that's how he got home, riding on the running board from Mount Ulla to Bear Pond. I thought that was a big deal.
Tim?
What I'm gonna talk about is what is a major event in the community and how did St. Louis respond. And getting back to softball, it was up at Mount Ulla, and we had enough men playing that we had 2 teams, the red team and the blue team. And then, of course, the ladies played too, and they had a team. And but I can remember, going to that up at Mount Ulla, and that was a community type thing, I believe, that, we all went and was involved in. And another thing that early experience for me was when I was growing up, we always went to the beach. These people here took us to the beach, and the parents got to sleep in little campers, but the kids had to pitch these tents and build trenches around them in case it rained and stuff. And but I can remember that. That's the only time I ever went to the beach growing up was with the youth, and we look forward to that every summer. And but this just a couple things there, and I just wanted to share that. So if anybody else wants to go ahead and mention anything.
Ms. Ruth?
Well, Faye and I are the oldest ones up here. We could probably answer every single one of these. Oh, that's right, Mr. Glenn, I forgot about maybe he didn't hear that. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a funny experience. I don't know how this came about, but when I was probably junior high age, might have been in high school, I don't remember exactly when it was. But Gail's sister Ann and I got drafted into doing the bulletins. And she lived down there where Gail grew up, and so every Saturday morning she would walk and come up the railroad, and I'd watch for her, and when she got to my house, I'd join her, and we'd walk up here and do the bulletin on Saturday. Well, nobody asked us if we wanted to do that bulletin, and as I said, I don't know how we got drafted into doing it, but we just did it. And it was with the old mimeograph machine that you had to do the ink, and turn it by hand. Well, at this particular time, it had been rumored in the neighborhood that somebody was sleeping in the church, either in the basement over there or in the ed building that was here back in the furnace room. So, of course, being young girls, Anne's a couple years older than I am, and so we were in there, and of course we were talking about that. We were in that little room. It used to be Becky's old office, except it was different from what it is now. But the door faced out into the little area in there. And and there was one clear pane in that door. We had the door shut, and of course we'd been talking about that, and all of a sudden a face appeared in that door. Now you talking about being scared. We started screaming and running around in that office, and I mean, we were absolutely frightened to death. We figured whoever had been sleeping in this church had us, because we were in that little room. Well, the person on the outside did not know what was wrong, and so we were in there running around screaming, and he was as frightened as we were because he didn't know what was going on. Well, he had on a hat, and all we could see was just part of that face and that hat. Well, he finally took the hat off and opened the door, and it was Mr. Huffman, who some of you all will remember was Miss Mary Cress's daddy. And of course, he didn't know why we were scared, but he took that hand, he said, girls, girls. Well, we felt kind of funny after all of that. But he was there that Saturday afternoon helping Miss Cress clean up, because Miss Cress cleaned the church at that time. So he had come to help her. But we talked about that experience. After that, it was the most frightening thing, because, here we were in this big old church. No doors ever were locked, and we didn't know if somebody had been sleeping here or not, but we thought whoever had been sleeping here had us that particular day. So that's one of the experiences I remember back. Of course, we can all probably answer every single one of these. The only other major event that I remember that was community-wide was, some of you older ladies will remember, the World Day of Prayer. You remember we used to participate in that, and that was the area churches, and it was, I don't even know if they still have that or not, but it was, I think, in November, and mostly the ladies would go because the men were usually working, but it would be held at different churches, and that's one of the community events that I remember about. Okay, who's next?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I guess the biggest thing that I remember, once you start thinking back, you think of one thing and then another, would probably be Sunday school. I know I always looked forward to Sunday school, trying to get there first so you could sit in the little bitty chairs with the arms on them. I think we saw most of those at the yard sale years ago. Singing the songs that we sang, the wonderful teachers that we had. I know Aunt Nellie West is the one that I remember the best. And I was trying to think the other day, I was singing to Adeline, my little granddaughter, and I was trying to remember the songs that we used to sing then. Of course, Jesus loves me, and Jesus loves all the children of the world, and oh, who can make a flower? And it was just amazing that once you started singing those, you could remember them. Also would be what we called then Luther League, which was the social event. I don't think I remember going to, but one time to Curie Beach with the youth. But I do remember hay rides and going to Tanglewood to go to the swimming pool, because at that time nobody had swimming pools around here, and so that was like a big treat. Nowadays it's, let's go to the pool. Oh, we were in it yesterday, I don't want to go, or whatever. But back then it really was. And it impacted me as much as anything else, is the care and the concern and the helpfulness of all our saints that have gone on before us, most of them are my relatives, I guess that's why. And all what I call my seat pew buddies, that I know you say you shouldn't sit in the same place all the time, but I know Carl and Lois Brown and Marion Lytle and all those played a big impact on me.
Sure.
So mine is Sunday school too, and it's kind of a funny story. And those of you that knew my daddy knew he was kind of funny, and he loved to sing. Every time he got up in the mornings to go to the bar, and when his feet hit that floor to go down to the basement to get ready, he started singing or yodeling or whistling. And so we were over there singing our little songs, and one of them was, I washed my hands this morning, so very clean and bright. And I really don't know the next part. But Daddy's version was, I washed my hands this morning so very clean and bright, and if nothing else happens, I'm going to wash them again tonight. And I got so upset that they were singing it wrong. And I kept saying, you all don't know those words. That's not right. And I remember I got so upset, they came and got Daddy out of Sunday school. And he came over there and he said, well, you know, sometimes I make up other words. And so from then on, I love that song, and I still, you know, I didn't know the right words because I thought it was, I washed my hands this morning so very clean and bright. If nothing else happens, I will wash them again tonight. But then youth was also a big part of our life, and all the trips to the beach. And Tim was right, and I don't know what happened, Larry and Carolyn, but Muriel's suitcase always got wet. I don't know how that happened. We all built our trenches, and ours were good, but Muriel's was soaked every year. We'd hang those clothes all over those trees. And Uncle Glenn and Carl Hoffner would get up and cook breakfast like we had this morning out in that campground, and you had those little wooden things you put on the toast, on the grill to make them toast. Remember that, Uncle Glenn? And most of us didn't have a clue about camping, but we had the times of our lives, either in the mountains with Neely. Remember taking us up to the mountains, and we'd canoe and raft, and Margaret and Alan Fouts. But youth was our life, because we really didn't have the ability to, you know, have other social activities. Youth was our social activity, and the folks in youth really became our family and friends, and
Carol,
nothing came before youth.
don't forget, Peggy Cress was just instrumental
That's right, Miss
in our
Peggy.
youth.
She was.
just great.
That's exactly right. We had so many good youth leaders through the years. They were more than youth leaders. And Chris, remember when Chris Faust carried her money around in a sock? And she left it at the service station, and I think you drove like 50 miles back to get her money in that sock at the service station. We did all kinds of crazy things, but I guess I really don't know a life without St. Luke's. So you all are really our family.
Thank you, Carol. Becky?
Well, I've been connected with St. Luke's all my life as well. And being the youngest in my family, they can probably share some more better stories about, of course, what happened earlier. They always talk a lot in our family gatherings about our grandmother and grandfather bringing us to St. Luke's to church in a horse and buggy. Now, I don't remember any of that. I just remember when I got old enough to come or remember coming, we came in a car and it wasn't freezing weather, but they always said that our grandmother and grandfather brought us in a horse and buggy there till we got vehicles. There's so many memories I wouldn't have time to share from being connected with St. Luke's, especially since I've been connected in doing a lot of the office work since 1969 when Pastor Sheely started the newsletter, the St. Luke's Vine for us. So I've been able to see a lot of the behind-the-scenes things of all the ministries our congregation has done. My personal life, I have more memories of when I started in the youth group Luther League. Jan Dagenhart, who was a member then, was president of the Luther League, and she asked me to have the program one night, and I had never done anything like that. It just terrified me to death. She says, "Don't worry, I'll help you. I'll help you. I'll give you the theme, the paperwork, what you're going to read." We went, and I guess it's still here, down behind the church somewhere across the railroad track, there was a pond. And we had an outdoor Luther League program that night. And it was, I can't remember exactly what we talked about, what our theme was, but that she gave me an incentive to build more confidence in myself, because I just didn't think I could get up and talk in front of people. And that stayed with me and helped build my confidence here and everywhere I've been through the years.
Thank you, Becky. We appreciate all that you have been doing. I certainly do. Glenn, let's go back to you. Go back, you got some more thoughts and some more memories.
M.L. Kester was the first pastor after we remodeled. For some reason or other, the Kester family and my family got pretty close. We had, they had kids same age of ours that was in my family. They had one boy, John Lee, my age. Had Virgil, he was sort of between Carl and Leonard. But we played a lot together and worked together. But Mr. Kester was a little short fella, about my height, and a lot heavier. And he liked to joke. So he told Dad one day, he said, you know, when I came to St. Luke's, people told me you was one of the pillars of the church. He said, after about 2 weeks, I found out you was one of the sleepers. But I like to get on to Sunday school. The adults would meet in the sanctuary. That was before we had an education building. And we'd sing a hymn, have devotions and prayer, maybe sing another hymn. We'd go to our classes. And the same thing with the youth. The youth would meet in the assembly rooms in the back. Well, when the classes were over, we would meet back into the sanctuary, and the Sunday school treasurer or somebody would give a report on the attendance and the collection. And they would say, for instance, class number 1, 8 present, 6 cents. Class number 2, 10 present, 8 cents. And I think we had 13 classes. And they would go on up, each class reported how many was there. And class number, say, 13, would they have 15 present, maybe $2.40, something like that. And I don't think they kept that practice long, but it was used. Also, after the church was built, the Sunday school was built, they had cloth covers over some of the rooms. I don't imagine anybody remembers that, but I think there's 4 rooms. They had these rolled up, maybe a canvas or something that rolled up, but I don't think that worked out too good. Eventually they covered those Sunday school rooms up.
Anything else? Somebody else with another memory of a different thing. Something you haven't shared already.
I'll tell about something.
Thank you.
When I was in the youth many years ago, the pastor was our advisor, which was Mr. Meissenhammer was our pastor, and so he was our advisor, and his wife would help him. So about once a year, the youth would decide to have something called a penny parade, which meant that they would divide the youth up into 2 teams, and the team that didn't collect as much money as the other one had to give the winning team a party. So before all this took place, it was in the bulletin, like it was going to last maybe a month. We could collect pennies from the members maybe every Sunday after church. So it was in the bulletin, the preacher would announce it, and all the congregation was ready because they knew we were going to pounce upon them wanting pennies. So after church, we would all try to run, if we could get by with it, to the front of the church and attack the men first, because we thought they had money in their pockets rather than. So we'd get all the pennies we could from these guys. Didn't go to the women much, so we didn't think they had many pennies, but some of the men did. So when we collected all the pennies, they were counted, and the team that won they were given a party by the other team.
That was always a big deal in our youth because we really worked hard. And what the money went for, I do not know. I don't remember what we did with the pennies. But they were counted one by one to see who won. That was a fun time.
And you know, we were talking at our table before we got up here. You know, when we were growing up, church and school was our social life. You came to Sunday school, you came to church, you came to Lutheran League, you came to weekday church school. Some of you remember that. It used to be on Saturday, and then they changed it, I think, to Wednesday night to coincide with choir practice. When you got a certain age, which was usually about 7th or 8th grade, you went to choir. There was no question, do you want to sing in the choir? No, you went. You went to choir. And somehow or other, we always got here. You know, our dads, most of our dads were farmers, and my mother didn't drive, and I was close enough I could walk. But other people, I mean, we got here. There was never any time when somebody said, oh, I can't take you today. You'll have to miss tonight. No, we did not miss. We came. And we looked forward to it. We looked forward to the youth meeting, the Lutheran League. I mean, it was just a fun thing. And it was the only other activity we had other than going to school. Some of your friends were with you in church, but some of them were not. Some of them you would see and you might invite them sometimes something special. And we were talking also, we used to have a Lutheran League banquet. Once a year, I think, we would have a Lutheran League banquet. And I don't remember, we'd have a special speaker for that. It was kind of a dress-up thing. It wasn't anything really formal, but it was kind of a special event. And I also remember we had lots and lots of trees out there around the sanctuary. We raked the leaves. There were no groundskeepers at that time. And it was fun. You know, we came on a Saturday morning, and of course after we raked them up, we jumped in them and played in them and scattered them out again. But it was a lot of fun. It was a fun activity. So, you know, all of my memories from way back up into present are pleasant memories. I don't ever remember thinking, oh, I wish I didn't have to go today, or I don't want to do this. No. And as I said, you didn't give a choice. You didn't have a choice. And you went in that sanctuary. You didn't get up. You better stand up when everybody else stood up. You better sit down and be quiet. There wasn't any going outside. The last thing my mother would say, you better go to the bathroom before we go to church, because you're not getting up when we get there. And that's right. That's right. You know, unless you were deathly sick, you sat in there, and you stood up, and you sat down when you were supposed to. But that's the way we learned, and I am so proud. I'm so proud that my parents got me to Sunday school, got me to church, because that's a lifelong habit, and it sticks with you no matter how old you get. And I am thankful to them, and to the other members who helped us along the way. We had a lot of help. Okay, that's my speech.
Talking about the youth, we would have a party. We were not allowed to have a party during Lent. And the pastor made that clear in our meetings. You can have a party, but not during Lent. So we all learned what that meant.
Somebody at the other table? Yeah. You got anything else for
In old church, you know, the seats were elevated, and that made it real easy for the pastor to see what was going on. And all, you know, the kids then would get unruly like they do today. And Pastor John L. Yost was the pastor, and Margaret said, whenever they got cutting up, laughing going on, Pastor Yost would stop his sermon and call those kids down, and after that they got calmed down, he would begin again. And the heat. Whenever they built remodeled the church, they had to put in a heating system. It was wood, hot air. And it took 4-foot lengths. And most of the congregation were farmers. And they had, or it was tied to the farm some way or another, and they had extra wood. They would stack up maybe a half a cord or whatever they had. They cut it in summer, and by fall of the year it would dry, and then they'd haul it in. They'd fill that furnace room over there with cordwood. It couldn't be very big because 4-foot lengths would be too heavy to handle. But I don't know who fired the furnace first, but Ray Klutz took over. Ray is Nancy Harris's uncle. And they'd come in 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, build a big fire. By church time, they'd maybe have the chill knocked off the air and we could sit. But they'd have wood cutting days like they have cleanup days. And they'd cut wood for the farmers around would donate wood. Just say, come and cut it, you can have it.
Anyone else? We've still got a little bit of time. I heard let me ask a question because this might prompt it. At our table at breakfast, there was a little bit of a memory of one of the major sort of ministry events was the time of the famine and the farmers that helped St. Luke's and how St. Luke's helped some other farmers, if I remember.
Hey, Liv.
Share a little bit about that. I think that was, I know a little bit, and maybe other folks here know, but maybe there's some folks that would be listening that may not know much about it.
Johnny can tell it.
Yeah, John can tell us about it.
Yeah, the drought of 1986 was much like 2015 droughts. Anyway.
Well, could you come and use the microphone?
Can y'all hear me okay? Don't beat your head to the girl. Don't help me. Anyway, the drought of 86 was much like 2015, 4 years ago. Okay. So the connection was made from southern Illinois between